Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here, and today I'm going to be talking about my Calory diesel heater. This is like a briefcase style, I believe they call it, but I've had about 4 diesel heaters at this point in my life, and I just recently switched to this one, and I'm going to explain why. So if you want to learn more just about this diesel heater, kind of the features of it, how it works, that kind of thing, stay tuned.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, my got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, so you may notice that I am not in the woods anymore, and the reason for that is that some of the footage actually came out bad when I shot this review or this unboxing of the Calory suitcase style diesel heater. So I'm reshooting it for you guys in my driveway. So let's talk about this thing. All right, so let's start with the exterior of this unit. So I want to kind of walk you through the layout of it and what comes on the outside of the box. Then I'm going to open it up and show you what all comes on the inside and what I modified, because I actually did change one of the main things with this heater just to make it a little bit easier to use. So one thing that I really like is it has this type of DC power in. And the thing that I really like about that power input is the fact that it is extremely similar here to what your DC fridges will run off of. So they actually are interchangeable. I actually have plugged my DC fridge plug into this heater to power it, and it works perfectly. So that's kind of a nice thing, is that you can interchange these things. And typically in the winter when it's colder and you're going to be using a diesel heater, you're not going to be using a fridge. So you could just swap those cords and use them sort of interchangeably, which is nice. Now here you've got your fuel line coming in from your fuel tank. Now I run mine from over there. Again, by default on this unit though, there are holes in the back here. You could just mount the diesel tank to the back of this and then again pick it all up with the handle. Makes it super easy to use, which is nice. Now I mounted mine a little bit differently to this slide out bar in my truck. So that gives me the ability to then, when I get to camp, slide it out from under the, essentially the roof that my rooftop tent has created to protect it, and to access it and then run the tube straight up into my tent. So that was kind of my idea behind it. But if you just mount the fuel tank to the back, then you've got an all-in-one unit with a big handle on it that you can grab and yank out of your vehicle, use it, put it back in the vehicle, and you're good to go. Now over here is your intake. So I'll show you the tube for that here in a second, but it is provided and it runs up through this little holder that basically allows you to keep it in the right place. But this is your intake that's going to bring the air in, that is then going to be heated through the diesel heater and then expelled from the other side. Right there, that big outlet there is for your warm air. And then down here, that is your exhaust. So you actually plug your exhaust muffler and tube into that, and then that will come out of the other side of the unit. And that's what gets rid of the exhaust. Now there's also a metal holder up on top there for the exhaust. I personally turn mine down and let it sort of blow down this way towards the tailgate. I've run it that way for multiple nights and I haven't had any problems with heat or anything like that. Once it exits the muffler, there's very little heat actually that comes out of it. So, but just be careful. You want to make sure that that's not touching anything because it does get really hot. All right, so now let's go inside the unit and I will show you how everything fits in here. Before I do that though, I did want to touch really briefly on setup and sort of assembly. So the only things that I actually had to put together for this are, you do attach with these sort of screws these 2 hangers for your exhaust and your intake on the sides of the unit. And then of course you have to cut and run your fuel line, which is super easy. It comes with these little pinch clamps basically, but you cut it to the distance or the length that you want the tube to be based on your setup. Again, if it's on the back, then you get a ton of extra fuel line. So you would have tons of extras if you ever wanted to change the length of your setup or set it up a different way. But you can basically just run it from your fuel tank. You do have to install this little nipple into there. That was a little bit challenging, but there are some other videos out there that kind of show you that process, and I'll try and link to them in the description down below. But it was fairly straightforward. You just basically drop this thing down through, drill a hole in the thing, and then put this nut on it and tighten it down as much as you can. Then again, attach the fuel line, run it over here to the fuel input, and then you're done. And now that I've done that, my plan is literally when the season is done, I'm going to take the fuel tank off and this box off, and I may throw a couple screws in the back of this and just attach it for the off season, just so it's all in one, and then keep it all together. And then on the inside, you don't really have to do anything. Everything comes pre-put together. But as you can see, that was the hot air hose coming out of there. Here's your intake hose. So this fits up in there. Now you do want to watch that fuel line. So there's your fuel pump right there on the inside, but this is all wired up for you already. But you just want to be careful. One thing to be careful of is that this exhaust pipe will be really hot when you shut down the unit the next morning. Same with this muffler that I've got thrown in here. So let those cool down all the way before you put them back in here, because you wouldn't want to melt a fuel line or hurt anything in here. But otherwise, this all comes pre-assembled. So you don't really have to mess with any of this stuff in here. I would recommend checking these sort of connections here. I did have one of them that was loose from my controller. So you can just plug them back in, but there's only one plug for each harness, so it's pretty easy to figure out what goes where. And again, it shouldn't be disconnected. I think maybe in transit something must have pulled this plug out, so I just pushed that back in and that fixed the problem. So then as you can see, this is your exhaust going out, right? It's got some heat wrap on it to kind of keep the temps under control in the box, and then this is your intake where the clean air is going to come in, and then at the top here is your actual diesel heater itself. Again, it's an all-in-one unit, which is really nice, and it's really easy to use. So with that app, it's nice. It does come with a controller, and then of course you've got the physical display too, so you can operate it from here as well. So now let's talk about the things that come with it a little bit. So again, this is your intake tube. I did have to put this actual sort of filter, if you will, on the end. The filters don't do a ton, so even if you ran it without it, it's probably not going to hurt anything, but it comes with it. You might as well use it. Just throw this little clamp on there, and you're good to go. Then here is the exhaust. Again, it comes with this tube pre-bent, and then it comes with the muffler. One note that I figured out is I was trying to get the exhaust over that, but what you can see I did here is I put a little bit of a bend in it just to make it fit a little bit better because it's really tight, but it actually goes on the inside of that tube. And again, it's very tight, so that's why I put a little bend in it. But when you are putting this together at night, just a note that the exhaust tube actually goes on the inside of that pipe, not on the outside. So just a tip there for assembling this when you get to camp. And then the thing that I mentioned that I did change out is I actually bought this tube. So it comes with one of these that are very similar to this, but just a bigger diameter, but like a metal style tube. It's really hard to bend. It's not very long. It's sort of hard to manipulate. This is like a softer dryer duct type of material with some insulation inside of it. I'll put a link to this in the description below. This one's a 5 foot. They have different lengths. For me, the 5 foot, because it's coming from right here up into the tent, is more than enough space. I did have to sort of just slightly cut a little line there in it. So it fits so tight that it just barely doesn't fit on there. So I did notch it just a little bit to make it then slide over. And as soon as you slide that over, both this end cap here, this piece comes with the unit as well, this vent cover, if you will. So I slit this end and then I put this on. You can see the slit right there. And I just worm geared that thing down tight on there. And I just leave that attached. And then again, when I get to camp, I throw this on that exhaust port there, or that hot air port, and it slides right on there. You can clamp it, so I do keep the clamp with me, but most of the time I don't even clamp it, if I'm being honest. I just put it on there, slide it on, and then again, as long as you're not pulling on the hose, it's not going to come off, and it works fine all night. So, but this thing is super maneuverable. It's super soft. It's easy to use, and as you can see, it actually folds down way smaller than the one that comes with it, which is really nice. So it takes up less room in the box, which gives me more room to store stuff. One note with this, and you can kind of see it here, is that this box is not waterproof, right? It has holes in it. It has vents in the front here. It's got some vents in the rear. So for your setup, again, just be aware of that. This isn't a waterproof like Pelican case. So if you wanted something that you could throw in the back and not have to worry about water or snow getting in, just be aware that this is not going to do that, right? So you probably want to store this inside your vehicle. I'm kind of rolling the dice a little bit, storing it outside of my vehicle because, again, my rooftop tent sort of serves as a roof for it. So when I slide this back in, as you can see here, it's almost all underneath my rooftop tent. So even if it's pouring down rain or snowing, unless it's, raining sideways here, and even then, with my quick release on the back here, there's really just this little hole here. So there's not a lot of ways. I mean, I've had this on the truck for over a month now, and there's really nothing in it. It actually rained yesterday, and there's no water in it or anything like that. So it would take quite a bit to get in here. But again, just wanted to point out that it's not fully waterproof. You can't really store this on the outside of your vehicle unless you're willing to take the chance on it. Or again, you have some sort of like a rooftop tent or something that goes over it, or a canopy or something in the back of your truck. So just wanted to point that out. But again, all this stuff then just fits right up in here. I basically put my exhaust like that. Intake kind of the same way. Just kind of put that in there. The muffler I kind of put up here above the exhaust just because there's kind of a hole there and it kind of sits. And then I end with the hot air tube here Then you can basically close that up with everything in there. Again, easier to do with 2 hands. But then again, you've got all your stuff in there. It's all included in one place, which is what I really like about it. So I've got everything I need. I don't have to remember things. I don't have to worry about, did I bring the tube to be able to run the heat, that kind of thing. It all goes into this one unit. So that's kind of a walkthrough of the interior, the exterior, the layout, and how to assemble the unit. All right, so now though, we're gonna wait until after dinner when it gets a little bit darker, a little bit cooler. I'm gonna fire this thing up. I'm gonna kind of show you that in action. And if it's like any other diesel heater that I've had, I'm sure it's gonna be fantastic. You get warm, dry air blowing into your tent. It dries out your tent if it got wet. If it's pouring down rain, if it's snowing, it's gonna keep your tent dry and warm, which is really nice. So tons of benefits to these units. If you are a winter camper or you've been hesitating to get out in the winter because you didn't have a diesel heater, this is really a great one. All right guys, so as you can see, it is nighttime now, so I'm gonna fire up the diesel heater. Now, I have it plugged in via my fridge plug because again, it shares the same plug as most of these 12-volt fridges. So I have it plugged in that way. That's why you see this cord kind of taut around here. It's going over that way. So, but anyways, I have it plugged in, I have it all hooked up, and I'm gonna give it a test fire now. I do have to go hit a button to turn on the power to this plug, and then we'll see what happens.
Start heating.
I just hit the power button, the on button, and it's turning itself on now. So just to kind of show you this, I just hit the power button. It has just turned on. It's about 9 p.m., so we'll see how long this lasts tonight, but it looks like it's going through its heat up phase right now. I can hear the fans blowing in there and stuff. And so we're about a minute in, and now I can hear it kind of turning over. Now you can run your exhaust up through that metal part like I mentioned. My concern was, one, the way I've got it mounted, it'd be pretty close to the diesel tank, which I really didn't want, and two, because the heater comes out, the heater tube comes out right below that, I didn't really want to risk it touching that. So instead, I basically turned it to the side. But now you can hear it kind of spinning up. Looks like the temperature's starting to climb a little bit. Again, this has been super easy, which is my favorite thing about it, is I literally plugged it in and then held the power button for a few seconds and it started right up, and it's doing everything on its own, which is beautiful. All right, guys, so we are up in the tent. This thing is blasting warm air, and I think I'm gonna sleep in a t-shirt tonight because it's toasty warm in here. So anyways, love this thing. It's really nice. All right, guys, so it is the next morning. It's about 6 o'clock, so it's still dark. Now it's raining, which is super fun, and you can see that the box did stick out a little bit from the awning, so it did get a little bit of water on the intake and just kind of the very end of the box. But I mean, it's been pouring for the last 4 or 5 hours probably, and it's just got a few drops on it. It's not wet. Didn't have any problems. Didn't cause any problems or anything. It also ran from about 9-ish till about 6 this morning, so call it 9 hours, and that's how much fuel I have left, which I'm really impressed with that. Now, I did have it turned down. I started at 20 degrees. It's only ended up being about low 40s, so it wasn't really cold. I didn't even really need the diesel heater, but it was really comfy and nice to have. And so I ended up turning it down towards the end of the middle of the night, maybe to about 12 degrees, because I was too hot. So I had to vent my windows, and actually turned it way down to 12 from 20. So it was just barely running at all. So that might be part of the reason for that. If it was, super cold temps, I might have gone through more fuel, but still, for a 1-gallon tank to run for 9 hours, I'm pretty impressed with that. All right, guys, so that will do it for the Calory heater information, if you will. Hope that was helpful for you. Again, it's early, it's raining, I'm gonna get going. But if you have any questions, post up in the comments down below. If you are looking for answers on this diesel heater, I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got. If you've got thoughts on the diesel heater, post those up too. I'd love to hear from you. In the description down below will be links to all my other channels. So if you wanna hang out on Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, would love to have you. There's also a link to my website where I've got funny overlanding camping patches and stickers. So if you wanna check that out, feel free as well. And then there's links to my Patreon page where we have a 24/7 Discord, and Newbie Overlanders, which is a free to join group with tons of awesome members in it. If you're newer to overlanding and you want to have a place to learn, that'd be a good place to do it. And we'd love to have you. So anyways, hope you guys have a good one, and thanks for watching.